Put the gun down now. Inside the school parking lot in Jackson Heights, Louisiana. 4 white officers surrounded him, screaming, weapons drawn, hands trembling. The man they had surrounded stood completely still. He was tall, dark-skinned, muscular, calm. In one hand, held loosely behind his back, was a black Glock 19. Not his. His hat read, "Veteran." "Drop the weapon. Get on the ground," barked the officer in front, his hand visibly shaking on the trigger. Children screamed from behind school buses. Parents stood frozen near the entrance of the elementary school. Car alarms blared. Teachers ducked inside the building, but the man didn't move. He slowly turned his head, looked at the officer square in the eye. "I'm not your threat," he said quietly. No one believed him. The school parking lot buzzed with the usual afternoon routine. Parents honking, teachers waving, kids laughing. But behind bus 16, trouble had already begun. A former student, young, white, angry, had stormed the parking lot, waving a pistol, screaming about being ignored and forgotten. Panic broke out. Teachers tried to usher children inside. Calls were made. Lockdowns began. Then suddenly, a loud thud, a grunt, a crack of bone. The gun clattered to the pavement. The shooter was unconscious. And standing over him was a man in cargo pants and a black t-shirt, holding the gun the shooter had used, pointed down, finger off the trigger. He hadn't said a word. 2 police cruisers pulled up so fast they nearly clipped a parked minivan. 4 white officers jumped out. Guns already drawn. They didn't ask questions. They didn't check the scene. They saw one thing. A black man holding a gun standing over a white body. Officer Mark Thompson, a 30-year department veteran, took the lead. His voice roared, "Drop it or you're dead." The man stood still. The crowd watched silently, phones out, recording. A few teachers tried to shout that he wasn't the shooter, but their voices were drowned in chaos. "Get on your knees. Put it down. This is your last warning." But the man didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He just stared. His name was Elias Vance. 59, graying beard. Worn boots. Quiet face. Lived in a modest trailer 12 miles outside of town. People saw him often at the gas station, always in the same camo hat, worked odd jobs, said very little. No one knew his story. And that's exactly how he liked it. Because Elias Vance wasn't just another black man in cargo pants. He was Lieutenant Commander Elias Vance, retired Delta Force, decorated with 4 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, and enough classified service to fill a dozen books that would never be written. He had trained foreign armies, saved kidnapped American diplomats, fought in countries the US government doesn't acknowledge, and right now he was being held at gunpoint in front of children because of his skin. "Get on your face now." Officer Thompson charged closer, gun shaking. I said, "Get down." Another officer, a younger man with red hair, began circling around. "He's not listening, Sarge. We should take him down." Elias's voice cut through the chaos. "I stopped the shooter." A tense silence. Thompson spat. "Yeah, funny how that works when you're holding the damn gun." Elias's voice was low. "Deliberate. You're going to want to check your radio." The other officers scoffed. Then a crackle came through one of the officers' radios. "Dispatch to all units. Suspect down at Jackson Heights Elementary. Black male seen disarming the shooter. Repeat, black male is not the threat. He subdued the suspect before units arrived. Confirm visual. Gun belongs to shooter. Over." Everything stopped. One officer lowered his weapon, then another. Thompson didn't. He just stared at Elias. "You think you're some damn hero?" he muttered. Elias tilted his head calmly, handed over the Glock handle first. "No," he replied. "I think your badge is heavy with hate." The crowd began murmuring. Someone yelled. "He saved those kids." A teacher cried. "He stopped that man. He's the reason none of us are dead." Phones were still recording and Thompson, eyes darting, finally lowered his weapon. Too late. That night, video clips flooded the internet. The hashtags exploded. #Elias Vance #NotU3 #BlackManCivitas. The media picked it up by dawn. Decorated black war hero mistaken for criminal. Retired Delta commander held at gunpoint by cops after stopping school shooter. Anger swept across the country, but Elias didn't speak. Not yet. 10 days later, a public hearing was held. Packed courtroom, TV cameras. Everyone wanted to hear Elias speak. He walked in wearing a simple black suit, hat still on. He took the stand. "My name is Elias Vance," he began. "I served this country for 34 years. I've taken bullets for people I didn't know. I've seen what hate does to men who don't fight it. And I've seen what silence does to those who let it win. He paused. What happened in that parking lot wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was bias. It was racism. Officer Thompson sat with his arms crossed, unmoved. Elias turned to face him. I wasn't a threat until you saw my face. The courtroom fell silent. Your problem wasn't the gun, Elias continued. It was that a black man had control of it and wasn't afraid. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. The courtroom door swung open. This time it wasn't just Elias Vance walking in. It was America's reckoning. The atmosphere was different now. He wasn't seen as the man holding the gun anymore. He was the man who saved lives. A quiet storm in boots. A man who had seen war, but now was staring down a different battlefield. Racism wearing a badge. Front row. Officer Mark Thompson sat flanked by lawyers, arms folded, jaw clenched. He hadn't apologized. He wouldn't because deep down he didn't think he did anything wrong. They called it a disciplinary review, but it felt more like a trial of the American conscience. Elias sat tall still. No outbursts, no anger, just presence. The kind of presence that doesn't ask for respect, it commands it. The first officer on the stand tried to justify it. We had no intel at that moment. All we saw was a black male with a firearm. Our training tells us. Elias's attorney cut in. Your training tells you to shoot first when he's black? Objection. Sustained. But the point had landed. The prosecution called Miss Caroline Polk, a white teacher at the school. I saw everything, she said, voice shaking. That man, Elias, he stopped the shooter with his bare hands, disarmed him, then held the weapon backwards like he was trained. He never pointed it at anyone. She looked straight at the officers. You didn't even ask. You saw his skin, not his courage. Then came 10-year-old David Miller, little black boy, still in his school uniform. His voice cracked as he spoke. I thought he was a superhero, but the police, they pointed guns at him. I was scared they'd shoot him like they do on TV. He started to cry. Elias looked away because he'd cried too, just not where anyone could see. Officer Thompson's voice was firm. I did what I was trained to do. A man with a gun is a threat. Doesn't matter what color he is. The room shifted. A black juror narrowed her eyes. The prosecutor stepped forward. Officer Thompson, have you ever pulled a gun on a white man holding a firearm at a crime scene? Silence. Well, Thompson didn't answer because everyone knew the truth. Elias rose. He wasn't supposed to speak again, but the board allowed it. He walked slowly to the front. Then he pulled a small folder from his coat, held it up. This, he said, is my file. He opened it, showed photos. One of him in Afghanistan rescuing children. One of him pinning medals on soldiers. One with a former president. Then he played an audio recording. Delta Team Bravo reports. Shooter neutralized. Subject Vance identified. Former commander. Cleared. Repeat. Cleared. Do not engage. It was the dispatch call the cops had ignored for over 25 seconds. Elias stared straight into Thompson's eyes. I've survived war zones where the enemy wore no uniform, but nothing prepared me for being treated like a terrorist by the people I once protected. The board ruled. Officer Mark Thompson dishonorably discharged, badge stripped, pension revoked. The other 3 officers were suspended indefinitely pending retraining and federal investigation into racial profiling. The police chief resigned the next week. A new department policy was implemented. Weapons must not be drawn unless there is clear immediate danger, not based on race, clothing, or assumptions. The policy is now called the Vance Clause. 1 month later, Elias walked through the same school parking lot. This time there were no sirens, just hand-painted signs on the gate. Thank you, Mr. Vance, our hero. Not all wounds bleed. Little David ran up and hugged him. They made a comic book about you, he shouted. Elias smiled. I ain't no superhero, kid, he said. Just a man who didn't look away. CNN begged him for a national sit-down. He declined. Instead, Elias walked into a local community center and sat in front of a small camera crew, just one take. He looked into the lens and said, America didn't fail me the day they drew guns on me. It failed the boys watching who saw that doing good didn't matter if your skin was dark. So, let me be clear. I didn't freeze because I was afraid. I froze because I needed them to see how calm a threat could be. Maybe now they'll think twice before pulling the trigger. Cut to black. As Elias walked away from the camera, he whispered, "A uniform don't make you a protector. But your silence that makes you just as dangerous." If this story moved you, shook you, or made you stop and think, don't let it stop here. Click subscribe right now. We tell the stories that the world tries to bury. Share, speak, stand. This is everyday people, and this is what truth looks like.